Falcon 9 is still grounded. VIPER is canceled in favor of a block of concrete for some reason, and construction of the first version 2 Starship has begun. All that and more on this week's Flame Trench.
And here we go. We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be normal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, roll, Atlantic.
Water towers, fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Fighting downside SC off. Bring in SC off. It's orange!
R45! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage. Put that in the big bag, Tingle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
If methane would be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. Keep red. We don't need any more of these.
Yikes, you bet concur. Welcome to another week of The Flame Trench, our informal weekly news show. You know the deal. I'm Jack Beyer for NSF, and I am joined, as usual, by our ever-competent cohort of co-hosts. Starting off with Mr. Trevor Sesnick. Trevor, how are you doing this week, bud?
Yeah, certainly can't complain. We unfortunately didn't have many launches, but still some exciting news to talk about.
Yeah, a whole lot to talk about. Some exciting, some slightly depressing. We can get
Yeah.
spicy about it, but we'll be. That's what this is for, right? That's what it's for. And also joining us this week is Sawyer. Sawyer, how you doing, bud?
I am spicy about it. I want more launches. I'm spoiled. How's it going, everyone? Good to be back. Was supposed to be on last week with the OG crew, but hospital said, nah, you're going to stay with us for a little bit. So all good now. Let's get into it.
Those jerks. They better not have hurt you. I will find them. I will hunt them down.
They poked me with a lot of needles. So
All right, well, send me a list of names.
the real
I'll
question
handle
is, did you feel the pain when I felt it? Because I think they may have been using me as a voodoo doll for you.
Is that what that was? Is that why my back was hurting me like all week, or am I just old?
Debate.
Ancient is the word I go for, but old works.
Thanks, Trevor. Thank you. Everyone, all the DMs I've ever gotten of people being like, be nice to Trevor. It's like, have you ever gotten a single DM that's like, be nice to Jack? I don't think you have.
I have not.
Good deal. Well, as usual, chat, I am looking at you right now. If you have any questions for us while we're talking about the news of the week, just at NASASpaceflight in chat, and I will see your questions pop up in some software we have running in the background. But yeah, I think with that, we'll get right into it and talk about Falcon 9 is still grounded. It went to its room. It did not get dessert. Trevor, what's going on?
Yeah, so since last week, we've had a few updates. Obviously, it was a week ago yesterday, so 8 days ago, that SpaceX had this anomaly. Where, just in case you somehow missed this, they had problems with second stage, where on a Starlink mission, Starlink Group 9-3, the second stage was unable to do its second burn. Right, on the Starlink missions, they have two burns. There's the first one, which is very long, of about 6 minutes or so, and then they do a perigee raise burn about 45 minutes after flight or after launch to raise the perigee, and that burn is about a second. And that burn, when they went to start the engine, Elon said that it resulted in an engine rud. And because of that, because this launch did not go as planned, the FAA has grounded Falcon 9 pending an investigation. However, maybe not pending an investigation. This week, or since last week's episode, the SpaceX has, with the FAA, applied for a public safety determination request, and this is what we saw ahead of Flight 4 of Starship, where SpaceX is making the argument to the FAA that, hey, yes, this last launch didn't go as planned. However, we would like to be able to not complete the investigation and move on with launch or not hold all future launches until the investigation is over, because we are claiming, we here being SpaceX, that this launch didn't actually increase risk to the public. So the FAA is going to make a determination of if they agree with SpaceX or not, and then at that point, if they agree, Falcon will be cleared to fly. If they do not agree, then SpaceX will have to finish this investigation before they're able to keep flying. In my opinion, it seems likely that SpaceX will do this, or will get permission to continue launching, and we saw signs of that. Yesterday, we saw some of SpaceX's marine assets leave port. I believe Bob and a shortfall of Gravitas had left. However, those have since been turned back around. So we were thinking, based on NOMARs and whatnot, return to flight would be net Saturday, but now that those boats have been turned around and based on recent NOMARs, we're thinking that it's no earlier than Tuesday for return to flight. So obviously that's still a no earlier than date. It could if the FAA does not agree to this a safety decision that SpaceX is wanting them to agree to, this could get pushed more into the future. However, let's just all cross our fingers that we'll see Falcon 9 return to flight on Tuesday.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I mean, obviously, we want them to take as much time as they need, and do the whole due diligence thing. But I bet SpaceX themselves really want to get back in the air and just fly another Starlink mission and prove, hey, this was a one-off. Don't worry about it. We're good to go. Maybe do that a couple times and then get back to doing customer missions, right?
Yeah, I mean, I know I certainly wouldn't be worried about it. Like, I would have flown on a Dragon mission the very next day. I'm very confident that this was something that SpaceX intentionally took a risk because they knew it was an internal mission, and therefore, while they weren't necessarily expecting a failure, it could have been like, yeah, this is a risk that was known ahead of launch, so it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
I do not think that this would have ever happened on a customer mission, and especially never happened on a crewed mission or another very, very high-class mission.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I would certainly hope not as well. Just like that, hopefully when all the facts come out, that we learn that this is a thing that, some like little minor thing that they were okay with on a Starlink, they ended up flying, that's not something they would have done on any other sort of mission. Sawyer, what's your take? What's Sawyer's take? I feel like we need a graphic and like a special transition and maybe even some like special background music. And now for Sawyer, with Sawyer's take.
My takes are usually flexing, so
well, take and a flex are
commercial.
Arguably two different things, but you can turn a take into a flex, as I'm sure you know because you have.
Turn me into Phil Swift instead of flex tape. It's flex tape. But anyway, continuing.
No, go on.
No, I agree. At this point with the Starlink missions, they almost kind of seem like they're blasé at this point, where they're pushing everything to its max of, all right, how many times can we fly the booster? How quickly can we turn around a second stage? What if we see a slight issue or manufacturing fault on a second stage? Is that a problem? It seems like the Starlinks are kind of the testing grounds for those, but it still is a bit scary that that's kind of their testing, and I get that's the SpaceX way. You blow it up, and then you find out what went wrong of why it blew up, rather than 20 years of ground testing.
Right.
But now you've got, obviously, the delays of getting that return to flight, and now you also have NASA that's going to be breathing down your neck, whether you like it or not. I mean, they launch Crew for them. Crew 9 is coming up. Despite what, obviously there's the important factor that there is no reignition of that second stage with the Crew Dragon capsule still attached. That's what you've got all the onboard Dracos for and everything like that. But you still have a second stage that had a fault that would be carrying people. So I could see NASA maybe being a little hesitant and pushing Crew 9 back a bit because of it. But I still think Polaris Dawn is going to go as soon as possible.
And we did get comments from the commander of Polaris Dawn, right, Jared Isaacman, after the failure. Yeah. He was like, I'm not worried about it. And he's flying on it. He is not only risking a bunch of money on this flight, but also his own life. And his response to the failure was, this is the SpaceX way. This wouldn't happen on a customer mission. That said, SpaceX is obviously keeping him well involved, and uh, the conversations of what went wrong, what they're doing to make sure that won't happen in the future. So for him, it's really kind of a win for them to really be pushing the boundaries. Like in some ways, it is really a win for even NASA, for SpaceX to be willing to push the boundaries on these internal missions, because now when you push a little bit too far, SpaceX knows even more about their vehicle, where the edge is, and that's something that they can now make sure they test for on every crewed mission second stage or whatever. So this is the SpaceX way, and Starlink has been a tremendous asset for the Falcon team to be able to really push the vehicle to the cadence that we've seen, and I'm sure we're going to see SpaceX do the same thing in even more extreme sense when Starship is operational.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did talk about it a little bit last week, Jared's comments, but I'm glad you brought them up, Trevor, because they really do sort of encapsulate a good viewpoint. And again, he has more insight into Falcon 9 ops than any of us in the public do, because he is paying for missions. And if that was his response, then I'll take that at face value. I don't interpret Jared as being someone who would just be a cheerleader for no reason. Like, if something is messed up, I don't think he would hesitate to say, "Hey, this is messed up." You know what I mean? So his vote of confidence in Falcon 9, in Dragon, is meaningful. So yeah, good call. I do see some questions coming in. Sawyer, go ahead. Did you have something you wanted to add?
I was going to point out a couple of things that were mentioned in the back channel that are important also. The fact that Falcon 9 right now is basically the ISS workhorse too, with Antares offline while they work on the 300 series. That means all the Cygnus resupply vehicles are launching on Falcon 9. So you've got crew going to the ISS Falcon 9. You've got the cargo going to the ISS on Falcon 9, in addition to the CRS missions, which are the SpaceX contracted cargo resupply missions. So there's a lot of, ISS missions that are coming down the pipeline, and I think that's part of why SpaceX is also pushing to get this really, get back as quick as possible, get as many proof flights under the belt of, hey, look, we fixed it, and get going. I mean, the fact they're already doing testing of some of these MVACs at McGregor, which you can watch at McGregor Live 24/7, is a good sign.
Yeah, agreed. And thanks to Jay and Alex in the back channel for giving us a little bit extra little blurbs there. All right, let's do some. Well, really quickly, we're getting behind on support already because y'all are awesome. So let's do some support, and then let's do some Falcon 9 questions. How about that? Does that sound good, Trevor, Sawyer?
I love Falcon 9 questions.
Yeah.
All right. Wilbo Baggins with a super chat says, "Wedding, catch up later." All right. So when you do watch this, I hope the wedding went well, Wilbo. Thanks for the super chat. RC Horseman, thanks RC for gifting 10 Red Team memberships. And one of those names pops up seemingly every time. Be sure to thank RC if you got a gifted membership from him. Thank you, RC. Telstar86, another one of those common names, gifting 1 Red Team membership. Hey, Jay, are you ready for the thing? Ninja Decimator, pew pew pew. It's never going to get old. Gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Thank you, Ninja Decimator. I'm seriously like a toddler. I'm amused by the simplest things. Like, hey, made the sound. Yay. Astro Joe gifting a Red Team membership. Lars gifting a Red Team membership. Sean, thank you for the super chat. They say, poll, what's first? Starbase Tower 2 fully stacked or Flight 5? Ooh, that's actually a really good one. That's a really good one. Chris, if you're out there in YouTube land, put a poll in chat if you can. If not, I'll do it here in a minute. That's a good question. I don't know. What do you guys think? Starbase Tower 2 fully stacked or Flight 5? What comes first? Sawyer, go first.
Oh man, throwing it right on me.
Yep. Don't pull an Alex.
I think it's going to be Tower first. The rate at which they're putting it up and the speed at which they're doing it is going quite fast. And Elon's time was 4 weeks, which usually means 8 weeks. So I think they'll be able to get the tower up faster.
It's pretty crazy. Like, even just with 3 modules, when you're driving into Starbase or when you're walking around Starbase right now, it's just completely changed the vibe. Like, I've just been standing around with the other photographers like this entire week, just marveling at how dramatically the skyline has changed and how the whole look of the launch site has changed. And it's just like, wow, that tower is going to be done in the blink of an eye. Trevor, what do you think? And we do have a poll in chat now. I'm going to say, I'm going to say Tower 2, just because if they really are trying to catch a booster.
Tower 2 or Tower 2-2?
That's
Stop.
I think you hit the like big point of this really is going to be about catch, because I think from a vehicle readiness perspective, like right this week we saw the 33 engine static fire of Super Heavy, which we'll get it more into later, of course. And then we're also, I think we're expecting Ship to roll out sooner than later for testing. It seems like they've been getting that heat shield done pretty quickly, and they're at least nearing somewhat completion. So from a hardware perspective, I definitely expect Flight 5 hardware to be ready before Tower 2 is fully stacked. However, the big question will be, what does the FAA mandate? Right there you can see Jack was saying already 3 modules stacked, which is crazy. So will the FAA require a pretty long, investigation into making sure that SpaceX is able to do an RTLS of Super Heavy without endangering the public? Or is that going to be a fairly trivial modification? These are all questions that we as the public have absolutely zero idea of at this point, and I think that's going to be the determining factor. So hardware readiness, I would say Flight 5 before Tower 2, including the FAA, it could be very tight.
Yeah. I mean, that's the big question, right? That we don't know the answer to is what is the process behind getting approved for a catch, and how long is that going to take? Is that the kind of thing that's going to take, 6 months? Is it going to require some kind of assessment or clearance from Fish and Wildlife, or, any number of things that could draw out the process longer? But we'll just have to wait and see, I suppose. Good question from Sean Flick. And the poll currently has Starbase Tower 2 leading 53% to Flight 5 at 47%.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of times the polls either go one of two ways. It's either like neck and neck, within margin of error kind of thing, or it's just wildly one way ahead of the other. There's no, or there rarely ever is any middle ground. Telstar86, thanks again for the additional support there. They say, when will the second stage deorbit? Trevor, do we know when the second stage for that?
It already has.
Starlink? It already has.
Yeah, so right, it was in a very low orbit, and I believe everything but 2 of the satellites have re-entered as of a few days ago. At this point, it's very possible that those final 2 satellites have also re-entered, right? At the perigee, or at the initial orbit, that second stage and the payloads were inserted into, they were losing every time they went past perigee. The apogee dropped by like 5 kilometers or something like that, SpaceX said. And the apogee was only 200 and whatever kilometers in altitude, so there was not that much time for those payloads to stay in orbit. And this is one huge advantage of the way that SpaceX deploys these Starlink missions. If something goes wrong like it did here, it's in a very low orbit, so it's not that big of a deal. Whereas like if this went wrong in say geo or some medium Earth orbit, that second stage and those satellites would be up there for hundreds to thousands of years.
Got it. Good question from Telstar. Blake Alexander. I love seeing the regulars all pop up whenever we do these. What's up, Blake? Gifting 10 Red Team memberships. Extremely generous of you. Thank you so much. Cannot do what we do without the membership program. I won't belabor the point. You all know the deal. If you want additional stuff from us and you're not a member, become a member. Different levels of support. Capcom and above to get Discord access. Musical Wolves, thank you for the super chat. They say, will this pressure Boeing to make Starliner turnaround time faster for redundancy since Falcon 9 is grounded? I see where you're going with that. I don't think so. This is just my thoughts. I'll let you guys weigh in here in a second. I cannot exactly imagine a scenario where Boeing has more pressure on them to get Starliner operational as fast as possible. Like they're so behind. There's been so many issues. Like I already think their pressure gauge or whatever you want to call it is maxed out. I don't know, Trevor. What do you think? And then we'll go to Sawyer.
I don't think so, right? Starliner's only contract that competes with Dragon as of right now is for ISS, and um, the ISS crewed flights, they've already given out all of those to the end of the ISS's life. Also something we're going to get into more later in the show. So Starliner will only fly those 6 operational crewed missions, whereas SpaceX right there at they're on crew 8 or 9 at this point, and they have through like crew, is it 14 something? I don't even remember the numbers. So no, I really don't think it matters. And also, I really don't think that this Falcon 9 anomaly is going to be that big of a problem. Like if SpaceX really, if there was like an emergency on the ISS and SpaceX had to launch a mission tomorrow to help save them, I don't think this anomaly would be that big of a problem from a NASA safety perspective. Like, yeah, I don't know. I really don't think it's that big of a deal. But I think Sawyer has more intelligent thoughts than I do.
I don't know if they're more intelligent, but I do have thoughts. I mean, yeah, I don't think they would go any faster with Starliner than they already are. They already pushed it, and they already pushed it a little too far for where they're at. So at least they're getting testing done. It sounds like that thruster testing at least is done down at Mojave. So that's one step closer to getting them home at least. Beyond that, again, it's figuring out what went wrong, creating the fixes, all of that kind of important stuff. And as you mentioned, yeah, SpaceX, the next mission scheduled to launch would be Crew 9. Crew 8 is currently up there. And the original goal was to have it alternating. So it would be 1 Starliner flight and 1 Crew Dragon flight per year.
Right.
They would alternate on and off. So it'd be Starliner 1, then Crew 10, and so on and so on. I don't think that's going to be happening for at least another year at this rate. But in terms of the issues with it, I don't think it's going to have a huge impact at all to ISS flights. I think they're going to be able to get this fixed quick enough, and like I was saying earlier, have enough of these flights in between, these proving flights of more Starlinks, of maybe a customer or two in there, to prove to NASA, like, hey, it was no big deal. We know what happened. It's fixed. Don't worry about it. Please send your people and cargo to the space station with us, especially given that Boeing's timeline, I think, is actually going to slow down rather than speed up.
Right. I see people in chat calling it Stayliner, which normally I would not say out loud, but this is the flame trench where we get spicy, so I'm going to say Stayliner.
Well, there was a question that was asked. I saw one of the super chats on
Yes.
what name to go with.
From Flawed Perspective, which is a better name, Stayliner or Stuckliner? Okay, now I feel like I'm being mean. Let's just go with Starliner. I feel bad now. I'm gonna start getting emails like I get the DMs to be nice to Trevor. It's gonna be like, be nice to Starliner. Bettina, thank you for the support. Alan C, thanks for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. 1 Beat Short, becoming a PadRat member. And good old Bideford. Hey, Bideford, gifting 10 Red Team memberships. Thank you so much, Bideford. Be sure to thank Bideford if you got a membership. All right, let's do questions. We have more questions. Right off the bat, I'm wondering, how is this anomaly, how do we think it's going to affect SpaceX's goal of what is it, 148 launches this year? Something like that? Trevor, what do you think? And then we'll go to Sawyer.
So I will very soon have tools that are way better at answering this question than I am. However, I don't think it's going to be too big of a problem. We saw last month SpaceX had 9 or 10 days without a launch, and even with that, they were still able to get I think they got 11 or 12 launches last month, something like that. So even with these longer breaks, SpaceX is able to keep their cadence to a decent extent. Obviously, right, if you're hitting 11 launches per month, you're not hitting 148 in a year, especially given the fact that they're behind. But this time is also allowing SpaceX to do some upgrades to the pads, to the drone ships, to everything that should allow for an even more drastic launch cadence. So I'm certainly not ready to rule out the 148 launch goal. I certainly think that this has made it harder for them to reach, but I would still be surprised if they don't reach at least 140 launches this year, probably closer to the 150 mark.
I would agree with that. Sawyer, what do you think?
All right, you can ring the bell. I'm going to be the salty one here. I don't. Thank you. I don't think they were ever going to hit 148 this year. I mean, they're pushing. They're trying. They're going to break 100. That I feel like is a given. I think they would probably hit 120. But based off of just the current rate at which they're doing things, I mean, obviously you've got the stage 2s, which all have to be built. Yes, some of them are stubby, but they haven't really been flying any of the stubby nozzles, which is a good thing from my perspective. But in terms of getting the flight cadence up isn't the best. So I think that they weren't going to hit it anyway. I think they're going to get close. I would say 120, definitely over 100. But I don't think they were going to do it anyway. I think it was going to take until next year.
I mean, just think 120 is such a low goal, though, because, right, they're already at 6. They're at, this was the 70th Falcon mission of the year, if I remember correctly, the mission failure. And the year is just over halfway over. So 120 is like easy for them to hit as long as things keep going well.
But you've got hurricane season coming. You've got crew launches, which are notorious for delays.
Falcon
There's
Heavy.
a lot of heavy, including a mission that potentially is happening this year. That'll be our next story coming up. But yeah, I think there's enough things in there that could have bumped it back while they refine their cadence. I think by next year they'll have gotten it down, and 150 is easy. But I don't think so this year.
I think their goal for next year is like 200, right?
That's insane.
It's just crazy.
I don't know if this is the right term, but it's crazy how the Overton window has like shifted because of SpaceX's insane cadence. Like the thing that we expect as normal has changed from, a handful of launches a year to 120 is easy. Like it's just so dramatic how what SpaceX has been able to achieve over the last 12 to 24 months in their cadence increases. How that's just changed our perception of what's normal. And we had somebody in chat. Let me see if I can find it. Gareth Cole said, "Would we have dreamed a year ago that 8 days without a Falcon 9 launch would be considered a long time?" I don't think so. Even just a year ago. It's just wild. Which, it's never been a better time to be somebody who photographs or is interested in rockets or spaceflight. There's just so much going on. It's crazy. It's literally the best time you could possibly hope for.
Oh, seriously. I mean, it is weird being 8 days without a flight, but it's exciting at least to see how quickly they're able to bounce back from this too. And I hope I'm wrong. These are ones where it's like, I hope I get to eat my words. And
right.
I did way back in the day when I used to do a different podcast. That was always my thought. If there's no way they're going to make this reusability thing actually viable and save money on it and landing on drone ships, and I was so wrong, and I am so happy I was. I want them to prove me wrong on this one. But if you want to be right, especially about what happened with this most recent failure, we have a fantastic video from DOS that was just put out the other day that really goes into awesome detail of what we know, what we don't know, and what this means for the future.
Yeah, some of my favorite videos that we do are these. We call them DOS-splainers.
Yes.
Because it's DOS explaining something. They're the best. So be sure you check this one out if you haven't already. And if you are a little bit behind on the news for everything that we currently know pertaining to the second stage failure, this will get you up to speed in classic DOS fashion. So we'll put the link in chat. We'll spam it a little bit. So save it to your watch later, download it, whatever you want to do. Please check that video out. We put some love into it. I know DOS worked hard on it. The team worked hard on it. So check it out. Let's see. Luke Clarkson is asking, Trevor, how many points did you get on Swift Alert? I have no idea what this means, but I assume you do.
I actually have no idea what Swift Alert is. This is
What?
an app?
Okay, you have fun with that. I thought you were going to be like 7 and we'd move on. So I'm just going to move on. You lost your chance.
Yeah, I think we just move on anyway.
Yeah. Daniel B. Is this our Daniel B? Saying, how can SpaceX request a public safety determination when the stage has not re-entered yet? It has. We talked about that a few minutes ago. Second stage has re-entered. Here's one from Gareth Cole again, saying, nobody has mentioned the cable that was flapping around on the booster after stage SEP. I've never seen that before. Is it possible that they snagged a line and damaged something? Like, this is a good shout. I don't think there's any relation, but it's a good, like, it's also not something I can recall having seen. So, maybe there was some damage during SEP. I have no idea. But Alex is typing in the back channel, and I expect him to say something smart here shortly, as long as he doesn't withhold whatever he's typing just to troll me. But I'm trying to talk long enough so that by the time... Okay, yeah. He says, if they mean the thing in front of the camera, that's just probably something that got stuck there. Look at the first stage. There's like,
Oh yeah.
I don't know, like a piece of insulation or a wire of some kind in front of the camera. I don't really put much stock in that being important or related to the anomaly at all. I mean, it could have been. I don't know. I'm not a rocket scientist. Trevor, what do
And
you
this
think?
is
Really,
this is one thing that is extraordinarily important to keep in mind, that I think the biggest reason why SpaceX has been able to get to the launch cadence they've been able to reach is actually two things. One, willing to risk flying hardware, like we saw on the Starlink mission. At least we're assuming that SpaceX took a calculated risk on this mission. And two, they got that booster back. If something was wrong on that booster, they have the actual hardware that they can go and look at, and which is just like tremendously valuable to be able to get almost every single stage back and inspect every single thing if it is needed. So even if it was a problem, I'm sure SpaceX has already investigated it and took mitigations.
Yep. Agreed. Good question though, Gareth. I've seen a lot of people asking about that, so I figured we would hit that while we... No, I'm not going to throw your ball right now. It's work time. It's not ball time. Sorry, dog. Let's see. Cody is asking, do you think the delay of the FAA determination on the public safety thing could be related to the global IT issues today with Windows devices? No, I don't think so. It'd be pretty funny to, like, if the FAA was just like crashed right now because they're all running Windows. But no, I don't think so. Sawyer?
planes didn't fall out of the sky, so they got that
A
going.
bunch
for
of
'em,
planes
which is
got
nice.
delayed though.
I don't
Like,
even
I
want
have
to
a
hear
flight-
about it. Go
I have
ahead.
a flight tomorrow, and I couldn't check in for a while because of it.
Jeez. I don't ever want to hear about another delayed flight again. I feel like I've been cursed over the last month with delayed flights. Although I did get to go to Hawaii, so yay.
Blessed.
Cursed slash blessed. Yeah, one of the two. Let's see. Gareth is asking, what's going to be the bottleneck for Falcon 9 launch cadence? Booster recovery?
They have a ton
I mean,
of
I
boosters.
think it's just second stage, right? Second stage and payload readiness.
Weather.
Weather. Yeah, good point. We are coming up on, well, not coming up. We are in hurricane season.
Yeah. But yeah, first stages don't seem to be a problem, right? SpaceX has a very large booster fleet. I think they're at something like 20-ish active boosters, give or take, if I remember correctly.
That makes sense.
And then each one of those, right, they've demonstrated reuse times of, like, the quickest is still like 21 days or something around that. Generally, they're a bit longer than that. Like, they've very, very consistently shown being able to turn around a booster in a month. So that's just right there with boosters, like 240 flights per year. So booster readiness is certainly not a problem.
Yeah, I mean, with fairing recovery and reuse, and with the fleet of boosters they have, I think it's all second stage and payload readiness. I'm not a rocket scientist, though.
Yeah. They have so
Also,
many fairing halves. It's crazy.
It's so crazy. And it's just one of those things that we don't hear about a lot. Like every now and then, SpaceX will do a tweet with like, oh, 20 reuses or whatever. But it's just crazy. Like I remember photographing the net boat. What was it,
Oh God, yes.
Mr. Steven? And then they changed it to Miss Tree, I think.
And Mischief.
Yeah, and Miss Chief. Like I remember, I have those photos from the Port of Long Beach on my phone. The little favorites widget shows me them every now and then because I have them favorited. Because when are you ever going to photograph a giant net boat? And yeah, that feels like just yesterday. And we've gone through, I don't even know how many iterations at this point. And it's just, yeah, we just fish them out of the water. That part too still just blows my mind. Like, yep, saltwater plus rocket parts, not the end of the world, apparently, somehow. I guess it helps when they're kind of just giant space canoes. Space kayaks? Space yak? No, okay, moving on. This one's kind of related to Falcon 9 second stage anomaly, mostly because we were talking about Crew 9 earlier. Thorbjorn, I hope I'm saying your name right. If I am, that's a cool name. They say, when will Butch and Sunny set foot on Earth again, and will they go back on Starliner? Sawyer, I'm asking you first.
Soon, TM. Again, they finished the testing, it sounds like, of the engines that they needed to do in the desert down at, I think it's White Sands down that way. But either way, it seems like that's complete. So I believe the last official update per Boeing on Twitter was still a couple weeks away. So that could honestly mean anything. But yeah, soon. And would they fly again? I don't know. There's a very good chance, and I don't mean this in a bad way, given their age and their previous spaceflight experience, that this might be their final hurrah and was probably planned to be regardless of how well the mission went or not. So I'm sure they're enjoying the heck out of their extra time in space for that very reason.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like, was it an Axiom mission on Dragon, like last year or something, where they got several extra days in space? It's like, hey, bonus. You can't even be mad about it. It's almost like if you're flying back to the US from New Zealand and suddenly get rerouted to Hawaii for a day. You just can't complain.
No, that wouldn't happen to anyone at NSF.
No, never heard of that. Trevor, what do you think?
I really don't know.
You don't remember the question, do you?
No, I was unmuting.
Sure.
I really actually am not sure. I think NASA's and Boeing's communication to the public about what's going on has been very subpar. And I also suspect that a lot of the reports that have come out and rumors about how bad the situation is are exaggerated. I think hating on Starliner, for better or for worse, gets clicks. Oops, go away, phone.
Yeah.
Sorry, my phone was ringing. And so I think the media wants to hate on Starliner so that it gets clicks. So I really don't know. I really think NASA should have done a better job. They should have from the very start been like, this mission we have planned for X amount of days with a possible extension up to this number of days if we want to get more on-orbit data or whatnot. But that's something that they didn't do. So right now we're all kind of in this position of, is Starliner fine? Is Starliner not fine? How bad is the thruster issues that we've seen? I don't know.
They did. They technically did do that I was in the pre-launch briefing for it, where they talked about the fact that, their plan was 7 or 8 days, and that they might extend it a little longer, that the battery lifespan was, I believe, 40 days. And I actually asked the question for NSF of, is there any specific thing that would, require the crew to stay longer, or any specific considerations that go into extending that stay? And they said, honestly, it comes down to just testing of the vehicle. If we need to look at more things, then we keep them up there. But there's no one thing that's like, oh, yes, we're definitely keeping them for 40 days if X, Y, or Z happens.
Makes sense. All right, well, once again, hopefully SpaceX can get this figured out and get back to flight pronto. But yeah, I think that is about it for the Falcon 9 anomaly. I mean, do we think we'll see Falcon 9 return to flight on Sunday, or do the recovery vehicles turning around kind of throw a wrench in that?
They're already not. It's already not happening on Sunday. It's no earlier than Tuesday.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Sure. Cool. All right, let's talk about
I
probes.
will end this section with my potential hot take. I would be shocked if by next flame trench there has not been another Falcon launch.
Ooh, what will you do if there hasn't?
What should I do?
Will you shave your
I will
head?
do. No, I will do 100 push-ups.
Will you watch a movie of my choosing?
Yes.
I mean, I've already fallen behind on that, so yes.
Yeah, you still haven't watched Arianespace.
No. Okay, I'll do that.
Do you need me
I'll
to
do
send
that
you?
anyway.
Do you need me to send you the name so you know how to spell it? If you type Koya into Google, it should pop up. I mean, there's no other word that. Arianespace. Come on. You're gonna hate it. Actually, you might not hate it.
1980. Yeah, I'm gonna hate this.
Okay. But don't like read into it. Don't read a description. You're gonna think it's lame if you just read the description. Just all you have to do: dark room, maybe like get your favorite snack. I don't know, like some carrot sticks or something, whatever you healthy people eat, and just like snuggle up with a blankie and give it a watch with an open mind. You might actually like it. Arianespace is a really good movie. Anyways, let's talk about probes. Sawyer, tell us about the 2 probes with problems.
I think that's for the after show with members. Oh, you mean space probes? Yes. There are 2 missions that are currently dealing with some jeopardy, some a little more so than others. We'll start with the lesser of the 2 at the moment. That is Europa Clipper. Like we were talking about just in the previous segment, there is still a Falcon Heavy launch scheduled for October of this year, and that is the Europa Clipper mission, which finally, going to one of the moons of Jupiter, Europa, it's been something that they've been wanting to do for more than 2 decades, designing a mission like this. They finally are getting ready to have it fly. It was originally supposed to fly on SLS, if I recall, but instead is now flying on Falcon Heavy, and will take a little bit longer to get there. So one of the main concerns, of course, then, is radiation hardening for all that extended time in space. Now, it turns out the transistors that they are using inside the actual spacecraft, they went for some testing, and per a non-NASA commercial customer, apparently they wouldn't even handle a fraction of the actual radiation they would be experiencing in space before failing. That's kind of a problem when you're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on this type of mission. It's something that people have been wanting for forever, and it's finally going to get to fly, and it can't handle the radiation, because there's the 2 different types to keep in mind. There's just the regular radiation that there is out in space. Jupiter has quite a bunch of its own, and then there's the flux. Terrible season of Doctor Who, but a flux of radiation that could increase spikes in the radiation levels and cause sudden damage to these transistors. The fact that it can't handle either of those at this point, per this most recent study, especially given that they're launching in October, not great, Bob. It's not great. So that is something that they are going to be keeping an eye on, obviously, and hopefully they'll be able to get that off the ground as soon as possible, get all of that testing done, get it down to the Cape, and launch it aboard Falcon Heavy in October. So they're working on the extensive test program down at Goddard, and I believe them. Now there's the second spacecraft in the room that is now no longer in the room, and that is VIPER, which I have to look up the acronym. I apologize, but it is the Volatiles Investigating Polar Exploration Rove Mission. So VIPER. This was going to be launched a little bit later as part of the Commercial Lunar Payload Services project. It was going to be attached to one of the other private landers. I believe it was the Griffin lander from Astrobotics, and was going to land on the moon and rove around and get all of this fantastic data and science. The thing is built The science experiments are on board. And then we get this that you see here on screen, that they are discontinuing development of the VIPER project and committing to studying and exploring the moon, and will pursue other methods to accomplish many of VIPER's goals. In a press conference, they did say that there are other missions that have already done some of what VIPER was going to do. There are future missions that can do what VIPER was going to do. It's just they're not going to be able to get all of that data. They might be able to even salvage some of the science parts on board to use for other missions. And instead, they are going to continue their contract with the Griffin landing system. And as Jack mentioned at the top of the show, instead of using a basically completed rover, they're going to be using a mass simulator, which typically means a block of concrete. So this beautiful thing on your screen there is not going to actually fly, rove, and land. But the main reason that they're saying that this could save them up to $85 million at a minimum is because it's built, but it still has to be tested. It hasn't done the environmental testing yet to see how it would handle in space. It hasn't done the shake testing to see how it would handle the launch itself. And by the time all of that gets done, you're already talking slipping potentially to November of 2025, when this was supposed to launch end of last year. And in doing so, that would lead to overruns. In fact, it hit what's known as the 30% threshold. 30% over, it instantly triggers a review. And that was the review that then canceled this mission. So Europa Clipper got some transistor trouble, and VIPER is gone. I don't know. I didn't have a good thing for that.
The transistor trouble was pretty good. I mean, you had a good alliteration there, but oh man, I try really hard.
Yeah.
To bring.
It's always a little unfortunate to see.
Go ahead.
Such projects get canceled, but what can you do?
Yeah, I mean, you can't really, as a taxpayer, like all we can do is be upset, right? Like there's not a lot we can do. I try really hard to bring like a positive, yay, exciting things about spaceflight vibe to our streams. That's what I want people to feel, is excitement about all the cool stuff that's going on. So forgive me, I'm gonna yell for a little bit here. First off, the amazing people at Ames. Like, Ames is a NASA facility in the Bay Area in Northern California. So, of course, I like Ames. I'm a California person. But aside from my bias there, the amazing people at Ames learned about this from the press announcement. Like, imagine being told the thing that you just spent, I don't know how many years of your professional life on, and learning that it's been canceled from a presser, or worse, from your friends texting you saying, "Hey, I'm sorry about this thing that happened," and you're like, "What? It's canceled?" Like, that is shameful. That is unacceptable. It is disrespectful, and it sickens me. So do better, NASA. Like, holy crap. Second off, the thing is already built. Like, and I heard what you said, Sawyer, about the testing not being done, and it hit the 30% rule. I think 30% rule is probably a good thing. Like, yeah, we don't want just carte blanche for overruns. That said, what is the shake facility like doing? It's not like booked year round, is it? If the machinery is just going to sit there when it could otherwise be testing something, yes, I'm sure NASA has to bill itself for the use of these facilities and all that, and part of that is the NASA jobs program, congressional money bucket getting spread around everywhere, but it's just infuriating. They already built it. It's already done. And, okay, so I'm mad about the people at Ames being done so dirty. I'm mad that it's already done. I'm mad that other countries are sending rovers and probes to the moon and, I don't know, investigating ice and important science that should be done. If we're really going to send humans back to build a base and establish a permanent presence on the moon, this seems like the kind of thing that we would really want to not cancel, even if there's a little bit of cost overruns and a little bit of schedule slip. Like, boo-hoo. Anyways, I can stop. I'm really upset about this on so many levels. It's just the Chandra X-ray Observatory, the NASA not letting Isaacman and Polaris like reboost Hubble. There's just I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. That's a movie reference.
And that comes with the announcement, I believe, today as well, that they're going to start laying people off that are working on Chandra as well. So on top of all of that, now they're, rather than try and actually save Chandra or do anything with it, they're just going to start laying people off in August. They'll start sending out the notices for September layoffs.
It's infuriating. It's infuriating. Like, do we just not care anymore? Do we not care about leadership in space? Do we not care about leadership in science? Is this not something that we as a society want to prioritize? Like, the amount of return on investment that we get from these things is astronomical, pun not intended. Oh God, Alex in our back channel saying Mars sample return. I'm ready to be furious about Mars sample return. Trevor, I don't know if you did. Okay, is it fight mode time? Is it fight mode time? I think it's fight mode time. You're wrong. I'm just going to start off by saying you're wrong. Please give us your L take.
MSR just seems silly, especially in the current architecture. Like, Starship, while still being very, very far out from being able to do a successful mission to Mars, is, like, in the grand scheme of things, not that far out. So now to develop some other architecture that will send back tiny amounts of samples from Mars for, like, millions, if not billions of dollars just seems dumb. Like, just wait for Starship. It's going to make so much more sense and not make NASA look like a joke when all of a sudden, 5 years later, Starship is returning, like, kilograms from Mars. Like, I don't know. Just wait, is my opinion on that.
I think from a planetary protection standpoint, sending Mars sample return just to get a pristine sample now before we start sending big honking vehicles like Starship is valuable. You can argue that that's not the biggest priority or as valuable as I might think it is. And I get your point. Like, yeah, Starship is coming online. When do you realistically think, Trevor, we will send a Starship to Mars that has the capability to either get something back up into Mars orbit and be retrieved, or come back to like, when do you think a Starship-enabled Mars sample return notionally would happen in your timeline, based on everything that we can see and everything that we know today?
It's really hard. That seems soon to me. Like,
do you think, like, what I'm getting at is, yes, Mars sample return is costly, and yes, Starship is coming online. But even though Starship is coming online, it's still going to be a little while. And if we can get samples back sooner, and maybe this is just my stupid national pride, kind of thing happening here, but first, I don't want us to be second to return samples from Mars. That would be a huge failure as a society, to me. We're supposed to be the leaders in space. Where is that leadership?
I get that.
If we just cancel Mars sample return?
Yeah, I definitely get that. So to answer the first part of your question, I mean, it really is so hard to know because, right, in some years, like, in some ways, you say 2030, and you're like, that seems way too close. There's no way that happens. But then look where Starship was like 5-6 years ago, right?
Yeah, it was like barely even Starhopper. So I get that.
But then to the second part of your question, while I agree being first is definitely important, on the other hand, I feel like the one big lesson we should have learned from Apollo is that making these one-off programs that are not sustainable to do something cool, I don't want to say it's pointless. Like, Apollo absolutely served a point. And it was awesome, and I still cannot believe that program happened, but it's just going to get shut down. When if you wait a little bit longer to have an actually sustainable architecture that seems smart. Just like how, in my opinion, using SLS for the Artemis missions is just stupid. Because this is not a sustainable architecture, especially like Jim Bridenstine and Bill Nelson. They've always been talking about how we're going back to the moon, but this time we're going sustainably. What part of SLS is sustainable? What, at most it can launch one time a year for billions of dollars? Well, it's silly.
Okay, I'll tell you what part about it is sustainable. It's support in Congress, and/or it's sustainment of old space.
Sure.
I mean, that's it. That's all it
But
sustains.
it could so easily, or I don't want to say so easily, it is very, very conceivable that in the future that the entire SLS and Orion architecture gets replaced by like some Blue Origin capsule, Starliner, Dragon, whatever, docking to Starship in an Earth orbit, and then
Yeah.
Starship HLS goes to the moon. That
100%.
architecture makes so much sense and actually is sustainable. So that's my opinion on MSR2. Like, would it be cool to get samples back sooner? Yes, absolutely, don't get me wrong. However, we should spend that money towards something that's actually going to enable us to do it 1,000 times and not one.
Yeah, that's fair.
Also,
Go ahead, Sawyer.
Where's our lunar lander at? If we're talking about sending something to Mars to land to pick up samples and things, where's our lunar lander? And I don't mean this in a bad way towards SpaceX. They're taking their time, they're doing it right. And I appreciate that, and that's what they should be doing. But to give, an unrealistic timeline of, at this point, hey, 2026, 2027, and we haven't even seen it fly yet. We've just barely seen some of the parts of it around Starbase. I feel like we're kind of jumping the gun there too. So if you're talking about getting that return sample sooner with Starship, we got to get back to the moon first. And this is one where I think it's going to kind of come down to neck and neck between which will be ready first, SLS or the lunar lander, when it comes to that program. I mean, I'm sure the lunar lander is still going to win, just because, like you said, old space and Congress versus SpaceX and new stuff. But I mean, they are partnering with commercial for this. You've got Lunar Gateway, you've got Starship as the lander, you've got eventually Blue with their lander. So it's I think that we still need that Mars sample return mission. I think we still need these science missions, but it seems like at this point, if it doesn't involve people going into space, nobody cares at the moment, at least from a political perspective, to the point where the funding gets cut. Oh, that saves us $85 million. Where's that $85 million going to go? I had to guess. SLS? Yeah. So.
Ugh. Hey, let's build a second mobile launcher for billions of dollars, and it'll take like 10 years longer than we thought it would. And it's just a launch. Okay. Calming. Calm blue ocean. Calm blue ocean.
There's nothing calm about this. Orange rocket. Orange rocket.
It's supposed to be good. It's orange.
It's so hard because, like, we really, really do try to not be super negative about everything. But when you're looking at these programs that are just like objectively extraordinarily inefficient in the like most government bureaucratic way possible, it is like hard to not get just annoyed that that's our hard-earned money that's like just being wasted on a mobile launcher.
Right.
When it could be going to science, it could be going to fixing the transistors on Europa. It could be launching a rover that is built.
Yeah. Oh, that's the other thing I'm really mad about. I had to. Oh, that's the thing I'm really mad about is they're gonna just launch a block of concrete instead of the rover. They're just gonna launch a mass simulator. Why?
Apparently, it's to prove that they can land heavy payloads. If only they had a heavy payload, that they could do it. And
it was ready to go. It just needs to be tested a little bit. Oh my god.
Okay, I have a legitimate question. Why not just not test it? Like, surely it would be better to launch it, not test it, than just launching some block of concrete.
If you're going to launch an inert thing anyways, then launch a spacecraft that might be inert anyways. Like,
if something goes wrong, it's taxpayer money. And then you're going to have all of the Congress people, up their butts of, hey, that was our taxpayer money that you just crashed into the surface of the moon. What happened to the NASA we used to know?
We're going to crash taxpayer concrete into the moon. That's somehow better?
But it's not science instruments. And remember, they can use those science instruments for other missions, apparently. Even though, again, I feel like it's built and you'd literally be wrecking the thing apart to get to these beautiful scientific instruments that just need to be finally tested and then put on the vehicle next year.
You know the episode of The Simpsons called Homer's Enemy with the Frank Grimes character who like shows up to Springfield and gets a job at the nuclear plant and is like constantly astonished the entire episode that Homer has never been killed or fired and that he's just incompetent and succeeding anyways. I feel like Frank Grimes right now. I'm like, I can launch a block of concrete at the moon because I'm NASA. Like, it's just, I don't get migraines. Thank goodness I don't get migraines. But I feel like I'm getting a migraine just thinking about all this. Trevor, to your point, John Sharp sort of asked the same question you just did. They said, is all this expensive testing really needed? Do NASA not already know how to build stuff for space? I wonder how may space... okay, yeah. Like, it's just... Yes, I want NASA to test the things they're sending to the moon. I want NASA to test the things they're sending into space. I'm not saying just don't test it. I understand that viewpoint, because if we're just going to send a block of concrete anyways, then yeah, send it. If it breaks, oh well, it's better than concrete.
I did see one interesting, I'm trying to find the message in chat, but someone pointed out, like, there needs to be consequences for going over budget. And I do think this leads to kind of an interesting...
Absolutely.
Like, it leads to a really interesting conversation of how do you actually have consequences for these companies going over, so you don't just have SLS and Orion's programs that are years behind, billions of dollars over budget, while not just like getting to the point of we have this payload, but now we're not going to launch it. Like, I certainly don't have the answer to that question, but it certainly is. Like, I certainly get the point that we can't simultaneously be here complaining about how inefficient one program is and then wanting for more inefficiencies in another program, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, fair. That's fair. At the same time, I think a big part of the solution there, or at least one of the potential like solutions in the toolbox, is fixed price contracts. Like,
especially for rockets.
If it goes over, contractor pays for it. Sorry, contractor, you should have bid a more, flexible budget, or a budget with more margin in it. I don't...
Starliner's fixed price.
Yeah, and Boeing seriously regrets it at this point.
That is kind of like the scary thing, is that NASA's really had one contractor who's been successful with fixed price. Boeing, I believe, has publicly said that they don't have any intentions of doing another fixed price contract with NASA.
Yep.
And, I'm really hoping that as some of these future space companies, like whether it's Blue Origin or Stoke Space or Firefly, all of those, I really hope that they, are able to get to the same level of success with fixed price that SpaceX has. But it's certainly, it's not an easy thing. SpaceX is definitely the exception, not the norm.
Yeah.
And also the other key point is fixed price, I think, makes a lot of sense for like rockets or spacecraft to low Earth orbit, or even, HLS to the moon, where you have a decent idea of what's going to be needed. But for some of these payloads, like when you're wanting to fly something to Jupiter on some crazy mission, or one of Jupiter's moons, and, fly a helicopter on it like NASA has plans to do, right? No one knows what technical problems you're going to find in that. And that's one of the reasons why cost plus is a thing, because, if you're building something that's absolutely never been done before.
Right. Like James Webb.
Yeah.
James Webb could not have been a fixed price contract. Like, it needed the ability to grow into its budget. I understand that.
Yeah. I don't know, it's a hard issue,
right.
But
let's do some questions. I'm all mad now. We can talk about something fun next. Kyler is asking, Starship's return from Mars will need to depend on producing fuel on Mars, however. That's so, Trevor, you were talking about MSR, and you were saying, developing a whole other architecture when Starship's going to be ready soon. I think any near-term Starship sample return will not be sending a Starship back into Mars. Like, it'll have to be some sort of second, third stage kind of thing in the nose cone that takes off from the Starship as like a platform, because producing propellant on Mars is not going to happen after the first ship lands. It's not going to happen after the first, who knows how many ships land. In fact, I suspect the first many Starships that we do send to Mars will involve carrying hardware for a propellant depot.
Yeah,
I think it's something like 2 football fields worth of solar for a propellant depot of the appropriate size. I forget where I'm pulling these numbers from. I could be completely wrong, but it's...
Are we talking football field or pitch?
Field. I didn't say soccer pitch. Is that? I don't. Ugh, I feel dirty. But good point there from Kyler. All right, let's talk about something fun. Let's do a palette cleanser. That was the shot. Palette cleanser is more details on the end of the ISS. Isn't that fun? No, I'm kidding. I can't even.
The details are cool.
The details are cool. I will give you that. The details are cool. Really quick, before we have Sawyer tell us about the U.S. Deorbit vehicle that we learned about this week, I do want to thank Charles Winters for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Thank you, Charles. Jake Winlow for gifting 10. Thank you, Jake. Camille, thank you for the support. They say we need an NSF Pets meetup. We do. That would be adorable. Probably also be chaos. Telstar, thank you. They say vehicle is permanently ending surveillance. Is that supposed to be VIPER?
VIPER.
Telstar again with more support, saying replace surveillance with reconnaissance. Apocalypse Cow, that's Danger Moo. Thanks, Danger Moo. Gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Coco Cats gifting a Red Team membership. Mr. Huggy with a 10-pound super chat. That's a heavy super chat. Don't lift with your legs. Don't lift that super chat with your back. They say, so should Starship bring back Perseverance with its samples on the rover and not just the samples? This is something I think Ryan was saying in the back channel, going back to the planetary protection sort of thing. Like, as soon as humans have set foot on Mars, ramifications for any samples gathered are different than if we just... Like, I know that there's a contingent of scientists out there that only want us to send robotic missions for the near term until we can characterize Mars without human presence so that we can know, this isn't something we brought along. This isn't a contaminant from Earth. So I get that. Maybe just Starship just snatches up the entire Perseverance rover with a crane, and that way no human has to touch the samples. I don't know. Fair question, Mr. Huggy. Aravale, what's up, buddy? They say SLS, the payload is jobs. I'd be laughing if it wasn't true. And
yeah, the rocket's fueled by tears.
And I'd rather be flying an X-Wing. Thank you for the super chat. They say, but according to Scott Manley, it wasn't the rover that went over budget. It was a different program being late that caused the problem. Angry Jack noises. Yeah, I think Chad has had enough Angry Jack. Let's talk about fun details about the U.S. Deorbit vehicle. Sawyer, expand our minds.
And Starship and recover it in pieces. Oh wait, no, I guess that was from both stories. So yeah, as mentioned, we knew that the ISS, all good things must come to an end. Its predicted lifespan was about 30 years, and we are about to hit that 30-year mark in 2029. So it sounds like 2030 will be the end. So how do you actually do anything with this vehicle? Can you bring it back in pieces? Sure, but they're not going to. Did you try and save parts of it or sell it off to commercial? Sure, but they're not going to. Can you tell I'm a little salty today about all the stories that I've got? They're all the not so happy ones. But what is cool is the modified Dragon that they will be using. So they'll get a crew up there for the final one, and they want to try and basically get people there on board, keep them as long as possible to help with any changes or things that would need to be done. Ryan Caton was in that press conference where they kind of discussed all this, so gave a really cool roundup of it in addition to the question that he asked. But they are going to use a previous Crew Dragon vehicle and modify it to have 46 Draco engines, 30 of which will be on a modified elongated trunk. Elongated? Oh boy, I should not have done that. Anyway.
Cargo Dragon.
Yeah, sorry, Cargo Dragon, not Crew Dragon. The Crew Dragon will be up there as quickly as possible to get out, make sure they get all the final things, take back any souvenirs that they want, and then it will be up to that vehicle to change the ISS's speed. Essentially, we're talking a whopping 57 meters per second of delta V, but that is enough to take it and have it re-enter, with the majority of it entering the Pacific and Indian Oceans as close to Point Nemo as possible, which is basically the middle of nowhere, the farthest point you can get from land on Earth. So to do that, it's going to be one of the heavier launches with more than 30,000 kilos of vehicle mass. You're talking 16,000 kilos of propellant on board. So this is going to be crazy. And as it says there, this has been agreed upon by all of the ISS partners. So yeah, it's going to be sad to see it go again. And unfortunately, it's time. All the stuff was planned to last 30 years. Things are breaking down. From the astronauts that I've spoken to, it is disgusting up there because it doesn't really get cleaned. So you're talking about dirty, sweaty people that can only sponge bath, essentially, living in it nonstop now for 24 years. It's unfortunately time to say goodbye to it, and hopefully, as NASA keeps touting, welcome in more of the commercial players into the low Earth orbit space station game.
Yeah, okay. Forgive me for a bit of a tangent. But yeah, I can only imagine that the ISS is in fact quite gross today. It's something, I don't know, I listen to a bunch of history podcasts. I'm a history buff, among other things. And I think about this a lot. Like, any historical figure or story from history that you've learned, one thing that we almost never talk about or think about is everybody was gross. Like, nobody took showers. There was no deodorant. Nobody brushed their teeth. It was just everything was gross. And I think spaceflight is, unfortunately, right now, in a lot of ways similar. Like, it's not glamorous. It's kind of gross in a lot of ways. Like, you can't take a shower. I won't get into the bathroom situation, but we all know how that goes, especially if something with the actual systems go wrong and you have to use bags or something horrible like that. Like, I eagerly await the day where spaceflight is not as gross. Because it's not like, I would go to space. I would 100% go to space. I would go to space if I had to use the mag and bags and all that. Like, whatever. I have to do it. You know, you're roughing it. But, like, good God, can we get a shower? Can we get a space shower that doesn't drown people somehow, please? Like, so the next space station can be not as gross after a period of time. That'd be good.
And there's more concerns, too, because of the fact that you've had so many different people launching from all the different countries, all the international partnerships, people going up, up and down. Obviously, there were concerns during the pandemic, things like that. But you bring these bacteria and potentially viruses and things on board the space station. Cool, they end up on the walls or whatever. But now they're starting to mutate because they've been in space for so long, so they're adapting to space. So that is its own... The ISS is becoming its own gross science experiment of what kind of nasty stuff can grow inside of a closed-loop environment for 24 years.
Disgusting. It is. So, you know what? I'm not nearly as salty about ISS getting deorbited in 2030 as I am about some other things. Would I like parts to be
people
reused?
Are salty.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, because they can't shower. They're all the sweat on them.
Yep.
So yeah, like, yes, I would like parts of it to be reused with commercial programs. Yes, I would like it to have like a life extension program or something, but it's also pretty gross. So once we get there, we'll see how it goes. But at the very least, now we know details of the vehicle that will be deorbiting what is today humanity's greatest endeavor, most expensive thing ever built. And now we have knowledge about how it will end, which is crazy. I feel like I spent my entire childhood growing up, like, learning about the ISS, seeing the shuttle launch ISS missions, and being like, wow, we're going to have a space station. and here we are.
Thing.
I'm coming up on old man status, and
sorry,
we're going to deorbit it. No, go ahead.
Sorry, there's a slight delay there. But yeah, there's anyone who was born essentially after the year 2000 has never known a time where there has not been a human in space.
Hi.
That is mind-blowing. And the fact that they have a flag above Mission Control in Houston that flies anytime there's an American in space. And since Expedition 1, that flag has never been lowered.
We have a comment here from Flawed Perspective saying, NASA decides to kill the ISS without a viable replacement. STS all over again. God, I hope you're not right. I suspect you're right, because right now the story is something commercial, something lunar gateway, right? Like,
Yep.
I don't love that. I don't love that it's that wishy-washy. Like, do we still think lunar gateway is a thing? Is that something that's going to politically survive long enough to actually get launched? Because I have my fears and my doubts, and also I hate the Halo orbit. But we've already had enough Jack ranting for today.
But it's so much fun to say rectilinear halo.
I mean, yes, but it's a stupid orbit.
I mean, I feel like it's still going to happen. It may not be the grand project that we've seen all the renderings for it to be. Admittedly, though, the ISS looks pretty darn close to what the renders were. Nothing like the original Space Station Freedom that it was going to be, which was somehow going to be even larger and crazier. But yeah, I think it's still going to happen. But the other thing to keep in mind with that space station is NASA has flat out said that thing will not be occupied 24/7 like the ISS is. There's going to be downtime where there's no people on it.
Right. I mean, I'm excited for space stations from companies like Vast or Gravitics or Axiom or Blue. Like, yes, I want modern space stations. I want space stations with a diameter that's not limited by the shuttle cargo bay. So we actually have big structures that you can like float around in, like Skylab. Like, sure, all that sounds great. Do I want the ISS to be deorbited before there's a viable replacement? Grumble. Trevor, Paul Kelly is asking, is this the heaviest payload Falcon 9 will ever fly? Do we know? Do we have any details on that? I've seen a lot of
It
speculation
seems likely.
online.
Yeah. Well, first of all, do we know it's going to launch on Falcon 9?
Actually, I don't think we know that.
I think
That's a good
I
point.
think it's certainly going to be Falcon Heavy, which then most massive Falcon Heavy launch probably, because almost all of the Falcon Heavy missions so far have been to very high energy orbit, so they haven't really been that massive. So this will be a Falcon Heavy launch to low Earth orbit. So this will almost certainly be the most massive payload by the time it launches that Falcon has flown.
Yeah, Jay is saying NASA LSP will select the vehicle. Ryan is saying Falcon Heavy, Terranar, New Glenn, and SLS are the vehicles that could launch it. Also Starship, I guess.
No way SLS launches it.
Yeah, good luck with that. One core every 18 months. One core every 18 months.
Hey, we finally got to see Core 2 at least.
We did.
It's coming. Yeah, it's arriving at in Florida on maybe Sunday, right?
This coming week. I know they'll be
Okay.
doing events, I believe, this week with its arrival. But yeah,
It's exciting.
it rolled out of Michoud, and it's coming. So it's a start again. But yeah, that's for Artemis 2, currently scheduled, I believe, right now for the end of next year.
So if we follow Berger's law, it'll be Q1 or Q2, 2026.
Oh, that hurts. It hurts to
does.
hear.
At best. I feel like we're being really negative this week. I'm sorry, viewers, if you wanted like a everything is great, but it's sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just not. It's okay to not be okay.
Normally we just have a trench. This time it's extra flamey.
There's extra flames this week. I mean, we did have a static fire from Booster 12 this week, so it's only fair that the flame trench is extra flamey this week, which we'll talk about here in a minute. Falcon's Maze asking, will we be discussing Wild Space today? Would love to hear your opinions. Have either of you watched it yet? I have not.
No.
Wild Space?
At least I know what it is. It's not me for once who doesn't know.
Hey! Yeah, it's the Ashley Vance HBO Max documentary about Astra and Rocket Lab, and small space or small payload whatever. It just came out. It's going to be amazing, so I'm really excited to watch it. Actually, we're going to watch it tonight at Rocket Ranch. So if you're in Starbase, come out to Rocket Ranch tonight, and we'll watch Wild Space. So
cool,
not going to be
1,000
talking
miles away. I'll join.
Yeah, just start rolling over now. Cool. I think I think we move on. I mean, there's other. Here's one from Demian. They're asking, why do they even need a Dragon capsule for ISS deorbit vehicle? What things does it do for that? I mean, docking adapter, like that's how you connect the giant fuel tank and engines to the ISS. I imagine also avionics, guidance, navigation, control, that kind of thing.
Docking radars and all of that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what else beyond that. Jay in our back channel is saying flight heritage. Alex is saying rendezvous and docking sensors, docking interfaces. Yeah.
Right, this is just kind of the SpaceX way, where SpaceX really doesn't like building off one-off things. And this is obviously in some ways the exception with the whole trunk thing, but they're still able to reuse a ton of, avionics and everything that was just listed, so they don't have to start that again. So it's really, right, we've seen this, SpaceX do this all the time. They have a few programs and they want to use those few things for as many things as possible. They don't want to build just one special spacecraft to deorbit the station.
Yeah, I wonder if, we haven't heard about Dragon XL in a long time. I wonder if there'll be any common heritage between the deorbit vehicle and Dragon XL. I doubt it.
Name from the past.
But maybe? I know, right? Like, when's the last time we actually heard anything about Dragon XL? I wonder if that's still a thing. All right. Oh, and Alex is saying no heritage per Sarah Walker. Thank you, Alex. All right. Let's mosey right along. And I guess now's the part where we talk about Starship, right? Right?
Yeah.
I like Starship.
Right? Yeah, thank you. I was like, we're just gonna sit here in silence.
No, we need angry stuff already. Oh no.
No, it's been a great week in
talk about something
Starbase.
happy and fun that we're all actually really excited about.
Yeah, we can end on a high note. It's been a good week in Starbase. There's been a crap load of activity, if I can use that term. There's been a whole bunch of activity in Starbase. Let's go with that. Things moving. I mean, both chopsticks now at the Sanchez lot. The chopsticks carriage now at the Sanchez lot. All the tower sections are either at the Sanchez lot or at the launch site. Module 3 was stacked. Booster 12 rolled back to the production site. Oh, yeah. And before that, it did a static fire. Seemed like, correct me if I'm wrong, either of you. It seemed like a nominal static fire, about 8 seconds long. You can see the replay there.
SpaceX did say full duration, so that's certainly a good sign, but that, of course, does not mean it was all 33 that successfully lit and stayed ignited. We haven't heard about that.
Right. Yep. So, hooray! That's Flight 5's booster basically ready to go. They still need to put a hot stage ring on it. That's why they rolled it back to the production site. Any other work they need to get done before launch proper. But now we're waiting on Ship 30 and the FAA, it seems. Which, speaking of Ship 30, it sort of seems like they're starting to take the scaffolding down from inside the high bay and beginning to get Ship 30 ready to roll. The question is, where does 30 roll? Do you think it's going to go to Massey's for a static fire because they replaced one of the Raptors on it, or do you think it's just going to go straight to the launch site for a wet dress? Trevor, go first.
I would be shocked if it wasn't Massey's. They've done so much work to this vehicle that I think it would have to go to Massey's. And I also believe the rollout closures are kind of more in the length of Massey's. I believe on July 21st, there are rollout closures from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. or then 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. And that we're expecting to be a Ship 30 rollout, but TBD.
Sawyer, what do you think?
Again, just based off of the closures and everything, it's got to be Massey's, especially after we saw what happened with Sparky. Ship 30 out there. What'd you call it?
Arky.
Okay. After Ship 31.
There you go.
With all these new tiles on board, I think they would A, need to static fire it, just, static fire the engines as part of their testing, and also B, see if maybe the work that they've been doing on that tiling to get it to stay
Right.
has had any changes, if some of them fall off that weren't falling off before, or vice versa. So I feel like Massey's is the no-brainer move.
Yeah, and I always wish I could never remember where the source of this was. Probably an Elon tweet, but something along the lines of the acoustic environment in the vibratory environment from a static fire is actually worse on a ship than during launch. So if they do want to test tile adhesion with their new tiles and the new ablative material underneath them, a static fire at Massey's would certainly be a good way to do it. Plus, again, they've replaced an engine, so that would make sense. Of note, the static fire stand is at Massey's right now, so we would have to see that get rolled to the production site, ship 30 placed on it, and then that assembly will roll back out to Massey's and get rolled over the new static fire stand. It's like, what do you call it? The mount? There's a mount and a stand. The stand is actually the physical infrastructure. The mount is the thing that goes back and forth. I don't know. You get it. But either way, I'm excited for that. I'm excited for that because that new static fire mount, the transport thingy that it static fires on, whatever terminology you want to use for it, somebody at SpaceX, please tell me what that thing's actually called, gives you a really good view of the Raptors as they roll it up and down Highway 4. So hopefully we get some cool Raptor shots when they do move 30, wherever they move it, hopefully Massey's. Alex is saying it's the crab stand. I love it. Hear it now and forever. It will be the crab stand in my heart. So yeah, we did Booster 12, did a static fire. We talked about 30 being apparently almost ready to roll out with them removing the scaffolding. We talked about the chopsticks and the carriage arriving at Sanchez from the port. I'm a little bit bummed. No more large things getting transported from the port to Starbase, at least not for the foreseeable future. I think the next thing that I could theoretically imagine being moved from the port to Starbase would be the orbital launch mount. But I don't even know if they could do that because the orbital launch mount is big and heavy, and that would assume they're not just going to build it in Starbase. Like maybe they build it in Florida and barge it over. I have no idea. But
You're talking about the one that's already at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station? Because I know Harry Stranger got some of the satellite photos showing it kind of still just sitting there.
Right. I'm unclear if that is going to be used at the Cape, or if that will be shipped over to Starbase, or if that will even be used at all. Yeah.
I thought we got confirmation that was scrapped.
I have heard that. I don't know if that's official or what. But yeah, I don't expect that to be used for anything. But I could be wrong.
I mean, I think, like, maybe the confirmation wasn't quite official, but Elon was saying that the pad has been completely redesigned for pad 2. So, like, from that, certainly suggests to me it's kaput.
Yeah.
I mean, we also have that one piece still that we saw in the recent flyover. There's still, what is it, the SQD that's out there?
Yep.
At the Cape, so that might be the only other piece left right now.
Although maybe they'll just build a new SQD, given that ship is changing rapidly. Speaking of changing ship rapidly, another crazy thing that happened this week is we finally got some eyes on version 2 hardware in earnest.
It's so
Yay.
cool.
It is cool, and we've been waiting
It looks
a long time.
It looks like a proper rocket. Like, it no longer looks like super. I know we've said this a bunch of times as SpaceX has evolved, but it
feels like every week. It feels like every week.
It really looks more like this is. I mean, because it is. It was actually made in a rocket factory plant. It was like it looks so clean. It looks. Ship Block 2 is going to be very cool.
Yeah. So I was only able to get lens on the nose cone, as it was already in the high bay, so it's not the best picture, but you can definitely see the new flap shape, and I'm excited. I was worried. I'll put it this way. I was very worried because
too.
ever since, what was it, like 2 or 3 Tim Elon interviews ago, Elon talked about moving the forward flaps more leeward and less symmetrical, and I was just, please God, don't make it look horrible. And it didn't look horrible. So eagerly awaiting that section to roll out of the high bay where it is currently and into Mega Bay 2, which some other stuff happened today, which I'll talk about in a minute. But go ahead, Trevor.
I agree that so far it does not look as bad as I feared. However, the real test will be how bad does it look when the flaps are deployed on the full stack. I still think there's potential for it to look bad.
I think that, like, I agree. It remains to be seen once it's fully stacked and you see the forward flaps next to the aft flaps, especially when they're open and not folded. I think that will be the ultimate litmus test of it. Does it look bad or not? But honestly, it might start to look like canards, like canards on a plane, or if you've ever seen a B-1, it has like the little catfish, like whisker canard things. It might look like the reverse of that. I don't know. I'm hopeful that it won't look cursed, because boy howdy, version 3 of Starship is definitely going to look cursed. And I'm not looking forward to that. Long Starship. But yeah, today they moved the new version 2 2-point lifter or 4-point lifter or whatever into or next to Mega Bay 2. And they also moved a new PEZ dispenser, like payload dispenser thingy, into Mega Bay 2. And separately from that, the Starlink building, which for a long time now I've been saying is like the former Starlink building. Apparently it's still the Starlink building, because the payload box, as you can see there in the picture, was inside the building. They had the door open, and look, what's that inside the box? Starlinks.
What's in the box?
What's in the box? Thank you, Sawyer. It's Starlinks. The answer is it's not a severed head, it's Starlinks. Trevor has no idea. We'll add that movie to his list.
Yes.
But yeah, so version 2 lifter, version 2 PEZ dispenser, version 2 Starlinks in the payload loader box, and a version 2 payload bay and version 2 nose cone. So version 2 is all the rage right now in Starbase. It's actually finally happening. Go ahead, Trevor.
Do we know for sure those are version 2 satellites? Because based on comments from Elon, I think the full-size version 2 satellites are dead, and they're going to V3. At least that's kind of what Elon has hinted at. So is it possible we're seeing V3 prototype satellites, or do you think there's old V2?
Well, so they had a big or 2 big stacks of V2 satellites in this building for a long time. And anytime the door was open, you could see the stacks of satellites kind of in the back corner. And then, I don't know, maybe 6 months, 8 months, something like that ago, sometime in the last year, they moved all those satellites somewhere. There was times where the door was open and there was visibly nothing in there. And then they moved in some like hot metal forming equipment, and I thought that was going to be like a machine shop, and that's why we were all sort of thinking it wasn't a Starlink building anymore. And then today, the door's open, and the payload loader is in there, and there's satellites in it. So that's all I know. Like, these could be those same old satellites that have been sitting at Starbase for like 2 years now that are probably functionally obsolete, but if they're the same form factor as version 3, they can at least test, loading them into this box and maybe even loading them into a Starship with, if you drop an obsolete satellite while you do all this, no big deal. It's not like that one, what was it, NOAA 93, where they were turning the satellite and it fell off the stand and it cost like $200 million because they dropped it on the floor. Don't drop the satellite on the floor.
Yeah, we have a whole list of space fails,
Yeah, we do. One day we'll actually do them. So yeah, hard to say, Trevor. I don't know if those are version 2 or version 3s. Just as sort of an interesting aside that in addition to version 2 hardware showing up at the production site next door to the production site over by the village in the Starlink building, which I guess is still a Starlink building. This is going on as well. We do have pictures of all this for members. Again, my picture of the version 2 nose cone is not great, but if you are a member, be sure to check out your perks in the community tab on YouTube, or if you're in Discord, go to the member photos channel, and you will see basically all the photos I took. I still have some stuff to edit from. Huh?
Join L2 as well. You get access not only to some cool pictures, but also historical photos, data, documents, all the way back to the early days of Starbase. And you can now get that at shop.nasaspaceflight.com as well.
Yeah, L2 rules. So yeah, I think that's basically it for the state of play. We don't know what's going on regulatory-wise. We don't know what's going on with a potential catch on Flight 5. We're starting to see version 2 hardware. Hooray! And yeah, I'm excited. So of course, the million-dollar question is, when flight? Trevor, when do you think we're gonna see Flight 5? Based on
I don't have $1 million. Sorry, I can't answer.
Sawyer, when no, you lost. You don't even get to answer at all.
Okay.
We're gonna get an answer from Sawyer, and we're gonna move on. You had your chance. Sawyer, when do you think Flight 5?
I don't want to. Again, I feel like I'm being the negative Nancy this show. I'm sorry. Here comes Debbie Downer. Wah, wah. I think we're talking end of August, early September. I really hope it's sooner, but I'm thinking September is probably more likely. I'll go week 2 of September to be exact. How about that?
I will agree. And Trevor, you get a mulligan. When do you think?
Again, from a hardware perspective, I bet they're ready within a month. So like, I bet hardware is ready like mid-ish July, somewhere in there. With regulatory,
it's mid-July right now, my guy.
Sorry, mid-August. But with regulatory, I sadly think I agree with the late August, early September.
Yeah, that's fair. I think everyone's kind of coalescing on early September, which I think is plausible. CJ Fellows says, when do you think the next launch will happen? Closest guess gets a prize. Really? Do we really get a prize? Because I think we all basically said the same thing. So, $1, Bob.
The prize is the friends we made along the way.
Trevor doesn't get the $1. Trevor, you've never watched The Price is Right, have you?
Nope.
I'm sorry, what?
He's never watched The Price is Right.
No.
He's never watched it. He's just a baby.
So if I say the word plinko, you don't know what I'm talking about.
He doesn't know what plinko is. He doesn't know about the yodeling, whichever one.
The
thing with
yodeling man, yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't know
Mountain
about.
climber.
He doesn't know about the big wheel. And getting $1 on the wheel means you get 10,000. Trevor. All right, moving on.
I'm sure he wouldn't even get the reference from Happy Gilmore either. Then.
No, The Price is Wrong. Javier is asking, are all the modules for Tower 2 already built?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and they've honestly been stacking the whole tower crazy fast, which is, you love to see it, right? James is asking, are the tower segments derivative of another structure, or are they 100% custom designed and built? To my knowledge, 100% custom. I mean, I don't know if they got like a buy 3, get 1 free deal or something, but yeah. So far, each of the 3 towers appears to be basically, if not exactly the same, but very similar to each other, but the design itself is a custom thing just for them.
They need to build one more. Then we can ask about the 4 towers.
Oh no, Sawyer. Oh no. People are going to start, oh no. Stephen Lewis is asking, the orbital launch mount took forever to build on Tower 1. Where is the orbital launch mount for Tower 2? That's a great question. We have no idea. It could be already built. It could be not even close to being built.
I bet so.
Trevor, the first OLM took them like, I don't know, felt like a year, maybe closer to 8 months to build.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they haven't even started on it yet?
I bet they've started on it, but I bet it's far out. I mean, so my gut feeling would be they probably decided on a total pad redesign right about when we saw the Florida ring launch mount get scrapped, right?
Right.
That seems like it would make some amount of sense. So then what I think that was probably a couple months ago at this point. So if you add then a little bit more time for them to like finalize design or whatever, I would be I'm sure it started, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's still a long ways out. Those things are complicated.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, but with the speed that they're stacking the tower and readying the foundations, I would think that that's something that they've already started. They would already want to start working on, so that when they're ready to go and have everything else in place, it's just a matter of slapping the mount on there and plumbing everything up and wiring it all up. I mean, like, just look at what they've done with the tower modules. Like on this tower compared to the first tower at Starbase, these modules are way more outfitted and like already have a whole bunch of GSE and wiring pre-installed on them. So I would certainly hope that the OLM for Pad B has a similar development cycle where they pre-do as much stuff as possible. I mean, remember what the OLM used to look like about a year ago or so? It didn't have the shielding on the outer side. Like, it was still like exposed on all the innards. You could see all the plumbing and you could take photos of all the individual valves and everything in there. It was crazy. It took them forever, even once they had the mount on the legs, to get it fully built out.
I bet like you were saying though that the second one, the launch platform, whatever it looks like, will be much more closer to being flight ready by the time they roll it out. Obviously, there'll still be a ton of work they'll have to do to it, since there's some work that you have to do on the pad. But now that they're launching, on a somewhat regular cadence and doing testing, you obviously don't want to have to stop work on that whenever you have to do a launch or testing. So it makes sense to do a lot of it outside of the pad.
Right. Ryan in our back channel is saying the OLM foundations are months from being ready. Yeah, I get it, but it also takes months to build one. And that the nude OLM was like 1.5 years ago. All right, yeah. What is time? It all just blurs together.
Which, by the way, for the people saying that they don't know the price is right because they're not in the US, there were international versions as well. I believe the UK's was hosted by the very famous Bruce Forsyth.
I have no idea who that is, but now I want to watch.
I'm a bit of a game show geek, so in addition to space stuff and aviation, I really love game shows. So
what's your favorite game show?
Oh, that's evil. I mean, I do DVR record Jeopardy every single night, but
nice.
Press Your Luck Classic is a good one.
How do you feel about what's the one with the briefcases of money and there's like 50 of them?
No deal.
How do you feel about that one?
It's more about luck and chance than actual smarts and wit. Well, it's kind of the same with something like Card Sharks, which was good, but Family Feud.
Remember when Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was like a cultural phenomenon, and like everybody would make the joke like, "Is that your final answer?" Like, remember that? Such a simpler time.
Back on with celebrities, but yeah.
They still have Regis, or is it somebody else now?
No, Regis died a few years ago. The American version is hosted by Jimmy Kimmel. The UK version is hosted by what's his name from Top Gear? Why am I drawing a blank? Jeremy Clarkson.
Oh, nice. James in chat says, "Jack, stop making me feel old." Sorry. It's just like a byproduct of me existing. I apologize.
Password, also a good call. Anyway, Countdown, Chase, yes, all good calls.
Good deal.
Sorry. Back on track.
Dave Dodd is asking, did we see potential new orbital launch mount hardware at McGregor? Yeah, so Gary Blair is an NSF team member who has a plane and does flyovers of McGregor. So again, L2, or a member program. And recently on one of his flights over McGregor, he caught what could be a new hold down design for the new orbital launch mount. So that's possible. I don't think we know, like nothing's been confirmed, but that was an interesting thing that did pop up over the last week or so. So good shout, Dave Dodd. And also, on the off chance that Gary does see this, hi Gary, you're awesome. I need to come back to McGregor and say hey, and can we please get barbecue again? Because Gary took me on a flight, I don't know, like 2 years ago, and afterwards we went to the most amazing barbecue place. And I don't know, can you tell that I haven't eaten much today because I'm fantasizing about barbecue?
I mean, Waco has some great places over there near McGregor.
Yeah. Sam is asking, is there any info on the issue of the new tower being too short for version 2 and especially version 3? Well, the new tower is going to be a little bit taller, right, Trevor?
Yeah, the new tower is going to be, is it another half section taller? I want to say. And yeah, Ryan is saying possible 1.5 meters taller, no sections taller. Okay, apparently it's just a little bit, a very little amount taller. However, version 2, my understanding is we're not expecting any vehicle height increase. The tanks are getting larger, but that's coming out of the payload volume section. So version 2 will actually have a smaller payload volume than version 1 does, but have another few rings of propellant. So shouldn't be a problem for now. Yeah, I have no idea how they'll deal with that when V3 comes out.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those wait and see kind of things. Maybe just move the lifting points further down the ship. I don't know.
I mean, you
Good
think
question.
they did technically have to raise the current tower that they're using. Right?
Well, they had to raise the ship QD.
Right.
Yeah. So one of the things that's different about Tower 2 and that's the other thing. Sidebar. What the hell do we call this tower? Do we call it Tower 2? Because technically it's Tower 3. But if you call it Tower 2 and you want to be technically correct, then you need to say Tower 2 at Starbase. I've been saying Pad B a lot, but yeah, I don't know. There's no satisfying, like truly satisfying name for. Anyways, I digress.
It doesn't even have a launch pad number though, so it's like Pad B of what? Like even out of Wallops, they have a Pad 0 at least.
Well, Pad A and Pad B. It kind of goes back to the suborbital pad days where we had suborbital Pad A and suborbital Pad B, and now we have orbital Pad A and orbital Pad B. So that's what I would favor, but it's still not. It's just not satisfying. Anyways,
No.
One of the things that's different about Pad B's tower versus Pad A's tower is that the attach points for the QD arm on Tower A, there are 3. On Tower B, there are 4. So they could, in theory, move the entire arm up a significant amount. So that is something that seems like, potentially a solved problem. Did they just use the upper 3 attach points versus the lower 3 attach points for the arm? But we'll have to see sort of how that goes. It's a good question from Sam. Fact, becoming a Pad Rat member. Thank you, Fact. I don't know. We have, 6 minutes to go. I'm sort of still angry about VIPER. I don't know.
Evil Jack.
If you guys have any questions, now's a good time. I guess we can just kind of do a grab bag, unless either of you has anything additional we want to hit on old Starship there.
By the way, I can't wait to hear your reaction in the post-show from members in Discord of what you really think without censorship.
Oh, man. Yeah, maybe if you have small children, watch the post-show with headphones. Creative Bytes, going back to the ISS Deorbit vehicle topic, they're saying, will anyone be able to see the ISS re-enter the Earth's atmosphere without a telescope? I don't know about anyone, but if you're in the right place at the right time, you will see it even during the day. But you have to be at the right place on the surface of the Earth, right? Probably middle of the ocean, which will be tricky. But holy cow, come 2030, you better believe I'm going to be trying to get eyes on ISS Deorbit. Like, I've always wanted to see something massive enter the atmosphere. Always, like, for my entire life. You're a little kid, you see a meteor shower, and you're like, oh my god, that was cool. How can we do more? How can I get more? Like, there's those companies that are trying to launch tungsten cubes and have them re-enter at a precise time and location. So it's like orbital fireworks. It's like, yes. Like, if I was a crazy billionaire, I wouldn't launch a Tesla into space. I would launch like a 30-ton tungsten cube. Be like, let's go, world's greatest meteor. But that's probably why I'm not a billionaire.
There's video of Skylab. So why wouldn't there be video of the ISS now, especially with all the cameras?
Yeah, very good point. Man, I'm looking forward to it. Even just like, I'm gonna be bummed, but I'm really looking forward to it. Like, I still haven't seen a Dragon re-enter. Sawyer, have you seen a Dragon re-enter yet?
Crew 6.
No, you lucky duck. That's a Sawyer
I caught
flex.
it just barely through the clouds. I didn't get any pictures of it, but just saw it through the clouds, and it's very unexpected. Just random orange and yellow and like sparkling, and obviously you see some of the ablative material just burning off, and you're like, that's normal? Like, oh yeah, there's 4 people just chilling inside that, and then they're on the ocean a couple minutes later.
Yeah, oh man, I need to see that. I'm bummed I never got to see a Shuttle re-enter either. Do you ever see a Shuttle re-enter?
No.
Sawyer never
No launches, no re-entries.
What?
That's
crazy.
One of my buddies on the West Coast, legendary news photographer and rocket photographer, his name's Gene Blevins, photographed Columbia coming in on its fateful re-entry from Lone Pine, California, and got one of the first, if not the first, photograph of it from the ground. And actually, there was like, a piece that was visible coming off, and NASA requested his imagery and like actually requested his camera and memory card, and like used all of that as part of the investigation. I wouldn't have wanted to see that, but I would. Like, I can't imagine if Shuttle was still flying, driving up to Lone Pine and seeing one come in. Oh man, how cool would that be? How cool would that be? I mean, it'd be very hot because plasma, but you know what I mean. It would be cool.
I was sad that I wouldn't get to hear the sonic booms, and then SpaceX started doing RTLS.
That's true. Speaking of sonic booms and Starship, I just once again want to reiterate how excited I am to hear a Super Heavy catch attempt sonic booms. Like, when a Super Heavy actually does come back to the launch site, I'm so excited for those sonic booms, baby. That's going to be awesome. Ninja Decimator. Pew, pew, pew. Jay is on point today. Good job, Jay. Ninja Decimator saying, slap some Starlink terminals and a few cameras from Starship on the Deorbit vehicle so we can watch the re-entry of the ISS. Yeah, I saw Scott Manley say the same thing. I hope so. I hope we do get that.
ISS destruction live via Starlink.
I mean, it would be sick. It would be sick. And I'm sure there's some good science that could be done, with that imagery, just in terms of plasma dynamics. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I just push a button on a camera, and sometimes good images happen.
I mean, they use Cygnus for that. They will literally set fires inside of Cygnus prior to re-entry and do a couple of free-floating experiments in it before it gets destroyed. So,
world's coolest burn barrel, aka Cygnus. I'd rather be flying an X-Wing. Thanks for the super chat. They say, name the towers Barad-dur and Orthanc. Trevor, this is a Lord of the Rings reference. I also did not get that. Adrian is going to be very mad at me.
You need Adrian on here for that. Sorry.
And Telstar86 says, Jack needs to finish food from pre-show. I did. I finished it, but it was not enough, and now I crave barbecue as much as a zombie craves brains. What? I thought it was a good analogy, if that wasn't even an analogy.
Yeah, what if the zombie's vegan?
Instead of Impossible Burger, it's Impossible Brains?
Yeah. See? You didn't think of that. Insensitive.
Trevor is unamused. Trevor, are you frozen? Blink so we know you're alive. Thank you.
Blink twice if you're being held captive by Jack.
By
It's
me?
actually like
Why would I be holding him hostage?
To make him watch all those movies.
I had to put Leica up. She was being too rambunctious.
you need to throw her ball.
I should have thrown her ball. That would have solved the problem here, right? James is asking, where do you think Starship will first be caught from a reentry? Will they do it West Coast so they don't reenter over land? I don't think they're going to do West Coast, because while they do have Slick 6, I think that's years and years out for Starship.
It'll be Boca.
I think it'll be Boca. I mean, Boca is the R&D place, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Plus, right, they're going to, by the time they're catching Starship, they're probably going to be past the point of wondering if they can make it to reentry. Right, they're going to be at the point of, can we catch it? And so once you're at that point, right, you're only really risking the area around the launch pad. You're not risking anywhere you're flying over.
Also, West Coast, Worst Coast.
Really, Sawyer? I was already arguing with Ryan in the back channel about it. Really?
I mean, yeah, really. Absolutely.
All right, well, thank you, Sawyer, for being on Flame Trench this week. We can mute Sawyer's mic. He's done. Trevor, thank you for being on Flame Trench as well. I'm kidding.
Of course.
We should wrap things up, though.
Yeah.
So at this point, I will say thank you to our launch engineers and flight director, our launch directors and our flight engineers. There we go. I'm good at this. I'm really good at this, you guys. Seriously, though, I said it at the top of the show. I don't want to talk people's ears off about it. It's your money. Spend it how you want. If you have some extra and you want to throw it our way, we appreciate it so much. The membership program is the bedrock upon which everything we do is built. And there's so many cool things that we would love to do that we just, frankly, can't right now. So all the support that we can get, we just plow right back into the field of content farm. We plow it back into the content field and farm up some great Yeah,
we're not a content farm, Jack.
Oh, God. Thank you, launch directors. Thank you, flight engineers. Truly an outstanding amount of support from all of y'all. It's truly delightful. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of our members. Thank you to everybody who was gifting the memberships on the stream or doing the super chats, all of that. If you bought some merch, we appreciate you. Sawyer, thank you for being on, bud. I'm glad you're feeling better. Again, send me the names. Send me the names. I will, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah, they'll get what's coming to them. No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll make them an offer they can't refuse.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back.
Good deal.
No, but thanks for having me back. I may be a little sporadic over the coming, month or two, but I love the show. I love getting to talk with you guys, especially Jack and Trevor. Soon we will be back doing those late night Falcon 9s because they do be hitting different.
They do be hitting different. All right. Well, thank you, Sawyer, once again. And Trevor, whatever, I guess, thanks.
Yeah, go make your dog happy.
She is going
thanks
to get,
everyone for joining.
She's going to get treats because she's been good. And then she's going to get a walk. We're going to do walkies. And then I don't know if I'm going to bring her to Rocket Ranch to watch Wild Wild Space, but I'm thinking about bringing her to Rocket Ranch. She has not been to Rocket Ranch yet. And she is basically a real-life version of Taz, the Tasmanian devil. Like, it's just chaos. So, I don't know. We'll see. But she's a good dog. Thank you, Trevor.
Is the slackline set up yet at Rocket Ranch?
No. Okay, here's the thing. Trevor and I are competing on slacklining. And I know, we're already 5 minutes over. Sorry, Sawyer. We're competing on slacklining because I recently rediscovered that I know how to slackline because I completely forgot that I do know how to do that and that I actually really enjoy it. But Trevor, you have a climbing gym with air conditioning. So I assert that you have a marked advantage over me, aside from just being better coordinated and younger and way more in shape. You have an advantage. I don't have AC. I don't have a nice padded room to set up the slackline. I have a windswept swamp filled with mosquitoes with which to set my slackline up in. So I don't know. We'll see how the competition goes, but yeah.
I got you both beat. Come on.
I mean, if we set up 2 slacklines, like at the right width, I don't know, man. You might be a legend. We don't know until we try.
So
Now we're
the
talking.
competition, by the way, between Jack and I is the first to be able to walk across, turn around, and walk back.
Yeah,
I have successfully.
How long is the line? We have a standard length line. What is it, like 35 feet or something?
Yeah, something like that. So it was like I've been able to walk all the way across, turn around, and do like a few steps, and then I fell.
Man, yeah, I can't turn around. I can get all the way across, barely. Although I haven't on a 35-foot line. I haven't gone all the way across on a slack line probably since, I don't know, like 2006. It's been a long time. Anyways, I think that's it for this week. Make sure you follow NSF on all the socials. At NASASpaceflight on Twitter, at NASASpaceflight_IG on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're in all the places you want to be. So be sure you stay tuned and stay up to date by following the socials, whichever is your preferred network. And thank you for sure to the socials team for being awesome. I think we can just end it. We don't have to watch a whole bunch of GIFs of me, right? Like, nobody wants to see that. We don't need that.
You know we do,
Right?
and the jumping around the screen, too.
Whee! Whee! Do it again. Do it again. Whee! All right, how many times are we going to watch me facepalm? Come on. Really? Oh, these are just all going to be me this week because I was angry. Jay, how many of these are we going to... I'm so hungry. My stomach is eating itself. I can hear it through my headphones.
There you go. Just calm down like the Jack gift. There
Yeah,
you go.
calm blue ocean. Calm blue ocean. Calm blue ocean.
That is not a calm blue ocean.
Wow, yeah. I do apologize, chat, if I got too angry. I know we generally try and keep things light, but I don't know. I had to get spicy this week.
Ellis are going crazy with the gifts of you.
Yeah, why are they all me?
Where are
Even
they
your GIF
being
is asking
posted?
why.
I don't see where these are being posted.
There's a channel called The Other Stuff under the Control Center channel.
Other stuff? I don't have that.
Hang on, let me see if this fixes it.
Hey, one that isn't Jack.
Hey, it's not me for once. We have Sus Sawyer. Made Trevor laugh. Very rare. Not really. All right, I think that's enough gifts. That's enough gifts.
Yeah, I want food.
End the show.
Food.
End it. Replace the show with a concrete block and launch it to the moon
You
for
said
some
say
reason.
bye. Bye.
Bye.
Hi.
And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be normal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, roger, Atlantic.
Water towers fly! Yes! Tango down to nominal.
Fighting downside SPD off. Bring in SPD off. Off. It's orange! Orange 45! Oh my god! Oh my god! Decollage! What do you think? Put that in the big bag, you know.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You read? We don't need any more of these.